lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, unfortunately, this afternoon, we found out late that the Panmure Road meeting was being postponed until next week at 7 p.m. because the traffic studies weren't done yet. So that meeting will be happening next week at 7. So the first thing on the agenda is the comprehensive zoning map update. Jim,
Okay.
you want to take it?
Yes, please, if I could. Good evening, everyone. The matter here for tonight is a zoning map update, and it's somewhat comprehensive. There's a number of properties that are listed on the public notice that folks might have in front of them. Rather than me read all of them out, I'll just tell you that this is going to be ordinance number P16/2014, and that the properties are listed on the notice. And with that, I'd ask that the notice be marked as the Township Exhibit 1, if we could. And it's okay if I just mark it? And then, as I understand it, there was appropriate public notice given by way of an advertisement in the Delaware County Daily Times on November 12th and November 19th, setting the time and date for this hearing, and we'll mark that as Township Exhibit number 2. And then lastly, we have as Township Exhibit number 3 would be the minutes from the Planning Commission of Haverford Township held on Thursday, October 9th. And it's my understanding that the amendments that are referenced were discussed and recommended to be approved at that hearing. With that, I'm going to call on the I don't know what the best title for you is.
The
Zoning officer. For purposes of this hearing, the zoning officer to tell us just a little bit about what this is we're doing and why we're doing it.
Thank
And
you.
I guess we should have her sworn in.
I would.
I do. Commissioners, first I'd like to say that during the course of a number of hearings, including conditional use hearings for the former Stratford Friends School, and as well as the proposed reuse or repurposing of the St. Andrew's Church, the township became aware that there were a couple of anomalies in the map. There were likely drafting errors when we converted to digital mapping, and several residents brought to my attention repeatedly that their properties, although they were designated as INS institutional district, were in fact residential, and they had certificates of occupancy when they acquired the property indicating that the properties were zoned, in fact, zoned residential. Additionally, we did receive a letter from the pastor of St. Denis Church indicating that the Grimes Center on Campbell Avenue at St. Denis Lane, which had been used by the church for a number of years, both a chapel and a community facility, was going to be put up for sale and would no longer be utilized by the church. When in our zoning code, if a property is zoned INS institutional and it's no longer going to be used for institutional purposes, the Planning Commission can, as well as a property owner, can petition for reclassification. So Planning Commission, under its own motion, can make a recommendation for the reuse of the property. That is one of the properties. Additionally, there is a parcel of land that had been acquired by Haverford Township. It's a former railroad bed, and it connects the YMCA property to the Stadium property. That parcel was zoned residential. The planners felt that that property should be reclassified to recreation and open space. And so those are the areas of the zoning map that we're gonna attempt to tackle with this part of the comprehensive map update. And to that end, there are several exhibits in the package that were prepared by Pannoni Associates for each of the board members. All of the changes to the map are indicated on the attachments.
Just for the record, we'll mark that exhibit that we're referring to now as Township Exhibit Number 4.
Just hang on to his. Just like,
So exhibit number 4 would be comprised of 3 different sheets. The first sheet would be marked Exhibit D, and it indicates the Grime Center property on Campbell, as well as the adjoining residential property, which for whatever reason was also zoned INS, but is in fact occupied with a single-family dwelling. That property would be 324 Campbell Avenue. The second sheet would be marked Exhibit E, and that indicates the existing and proposed zoning of the railroad right-of-way that, again, is presently marked R5 Residential District, and it's proposed to be marked ROS because it's part of the township trail system. Now, the third sheet, marked Exhibit G, again, we pulled exhibits from a much larger list of map amendments to work on incrementally. And Exhibit G shows the area of St. Dennis Church, the Stratford Friends School, and some of the surrounding residential properties as well. Both the existing zoning, which is on the left, is what's shown to the left, and the proposed zoning, which is on the schematic to the right.
Okay, thank you. Any of the commissioners have any questions?
Just for clarification, she said St. Dennis, it should be St. Andrews. Fully St. Andrews.
I'm sorry. You're right, it was St., the third sheet does show St.
St.
Andrews
Andrews,
and the
right.
Stratford Friends School.
Right.
I'm very sorry. I'm mixing my exhibits.
Any commissioners have any questions?
Can I just, elaborate on the very first exhibit? Exhibit D shows, again, the Grime Center, which is part of the St. Dennis property. When the map amendment was discussed by the Planning Commission members, they made a recommendation as a way to help control density and for conformity of setback lines, that the property be reclassified not to the R6 but to the R4 zoning district. In visiting the site and reviewing the old records, it became clear that the property originally was designated R6 before the township created INS zoning. And the property was residential. It was in fact part of the R6 zoning district, which includes the area, and you can see that on the left side of the sheet marked Exhibit D. It shows all of the R6 properties in the area. So when you look at Exhibit D, it has R4/R6 because at the time the Planning Commission reviewed the matter, we didn't have all of the historic information, and afterwards we did receive the information. We did pull the old 1949 zoning code and the old 1974 zoning code and reviewed that and found that in fact it was R6.
Laurie, what's your recommendation to us on that?
My recommendation would be to make the property R6, because all you're doing is reverting it to its original residential designation.
And Lori's R6 on that side, am I seeing all the way down the street there? Isn't that R6 to the right of your Grime Center?
Across the street.
Is
on
R4.
St. Dennis is R4, across the street on Campbell is R6 across
Right.
the street on Campbell's R6, going down Winton Road is R6.
Okay.
The next block of Campbell is R4, but the property at 324 Campbell is much closer to the street than the other homes on the street, and that should be R6. It was originally R6, which I believe is why it sits forward.
And that's the 2203-00265?
No, it's the one next to
It's
it.
the one next to it. Okay,
To our right.
got it.
Just
Okay,
for
thank you.
edification, could you just, for both the public and me, R4 and R6?
R4 requires a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet, has a 30% building coverage, has a required front yard setback of 30 feet, side yard setback aggregate width of 20 feet, so there would be 8 on one side and 12 on the other, so that the two together combined equal 20 feet. A 25-foot rear yard setback, and the zoning classification provides for detached single-family homes. An R6 designation provides for single-family dwellings within 4,000 square feet. It also provides as an option twin homes, but each side of the twin would be sited on 3,000 square feet. There's a front yard setback of 20 feet. The aggregate side yard setback for the singles is 16 feet, but on the twins, you would only have the 12 feet. You would have, it's 14 feet on the single. You would have 12 foot on one side of a twin. So if you have a twin, you have no setback on one side and 12 feet on the other side. There's still a 25-foot rear yard setback. Depending upon the housing style, the building coverage goes from 40% to 65%. So depending on the housing type. So that's the difference. There's a difference in the density ratio in the zoning classifications. And you can see that again, if you look at the homes, for instance, up and down Winton Road from Campbell Avenue going down, you could see that there is in fact a difference. The same thing across the street on Campbell Avenue. They were clearly designated R6.
Thank you.
Any other questions, other board? One last question I had is, we talked a little bit about the public notice and the public advertising as exhibits Township 1 and Township 2. There was also notices sent to adjoining property owners as well, is that right?
Correct, and the mailing sheets and maps are part of the file as well.
Okay,
if you would
and we'll
them.
mark them collectively as exhibit Township 4, right? Okay. And with that, I'm sorry. Oh, 4, and then 5, I'm sorry, 5, yeah. So that would be, the mailing sheets would be Township Exhibit 5. Okay, with that, we would open the meeting to anybody from the public that would like to speak with respect to these zoning map changes, not any other issues. This is a hearing for the zoning map changes. So if anybody would like to speak to these, you're invited to come up and do so. While you're getting your coat off, one thing that we will do when you come up is, since this is a hearing, we're going to ask you to come to the microphone so that you can be heard on the TV, and also we're going to ask you to be sworn in as a witness.
I do.
Go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
312 Lansdowne Road, Janos, OS. Folio 22-02-00706-00. And I came today because I noticed what appears to be a discrepancy between the public notice given to me as a resident, adjoining property owner resident, and the ordinance. And I'm referring to Exhibit G, in which folio 22-02-00650-01, the Lanark Park at Darby and Moen Roads, appears in the public notice to be changed from institutional to R4, whereas I believe the actual ordinance says it's institutional to ROS. If it's institutional to ROS, I have no objection. If it's institutional to R4, I do have an objection.
It should be, right?
The proposal, that is a typographical, and the exhibits that I placed at the podium depict on the existing conditions to the left and the proposal to the right. The proposal shows 220200650001 as reclassified to ROS.
I understood. Just that our notice was different. That's all I have.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Go.
Yeah, we need you to come up, though, because this is a hearing, and we need to have you
So cool.
identify.
Fittipaldi, Fittipaldi.
And then we're going to ask you to be sworn in as well, okay?
Pardon me? 225 Campbell Avenue. I do. I just have a question. I heard rumors that the Township Library was looking into the Grimes Center. I want to know that if that's going to happen, or is it going to be residential?
Would you like,
If you want to answer, you can. I mean, if you have it, do you
I
have
just
any
don't feel like
information?
we have any information at this time to
Right.
answer that question
Okay.
appropriately or accurately. We really don't at this time.
So there's a chance that you were looking into the library to be there?
The library has looked at that property.
Okay. Well, to me, as living on Campbell Avenue, my kids are all grown, but now I have grandkids. There's a lot of little kids. We have enough traffic going through, cutting through from Eagle Road to go up Campbell to get on Darby. You bring the library, we're going to have traffic galore. So I really want you to look into that. I'd rather see houses there where the Grimes Center is, right? More people at the township, but the library, no way. There's just no way. So will we find out something? I mean, do we have a chance of fighting the library?
Jane, do you want to take this, or do you want me to? You have, I can promise you that you'll have all the chances in the world to fight the library. Whatever happens tonight with these zoning maps has nothing to do with any negotiations that the library is engaging with anybody for a site in town. And when that happens, this board will have to host numerous meetings, and there will be lots of public input and feedback from citizens, from commissioners, before any decision is made for the library to go anywhere in the township. So in addition to thinking about the Grimes Center, the library is thinking about all sorts of places, and we as a board have discussed all sorts of places openly. But I hope, as you know from the meetings, the only commitment this board has made at this point is that it will invest in serious revisions to or building a new library. This board will take no action putting that library anywhere or leaving it where it is without a great deal of public debate.
The residents all know and all that, because you might not live on Campbell Avenue, but right now, I bet you cut through from Eagle Road to Campbell Avenue to get to Darby Road. I bet you everyone in this place does.
I admit, I don't.
don't.
I don't. Yeah. I live on a
I have to be
cut-through street
honest, I don't.
myself, and
Well,
that's a
then you
real
would
headache.
understand
And I
using it
understand.
as a cut through, okay?
But it literally has nothing to do with the zoning map changes that are going on here, and I
I
can
just heard this
assure
rumor. and
everybody.
You don't see my face much here where you should, but when I heard a library, I mean, I know we need a new library, but not at the Grimes Center.
Again, all those things will be the subject of significant meetings and plenty of opportunities for everybody, including you, to have, to make more comments on that.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Okay. Anyone else?
we change it to institutional and then change it back, or change it to residential and change it back.
I do. My last name is Eager, E-G-E-R, and I live at 324 Campbell Avenue.
First name?
Gregory. After looking at the zoning map, proposed zoning boundaries, and listening to what the commissioners had to say tonight, and also being very familiar with that section of Campbell Avenue, it would be my preference that the zoning be changed to R4 opposed to R6, as I feel that single-family homes will help sustain the property values in the area. In addition, a lot of the lots, although they are zoned R6, from St. Denis to Hawthorne are all single-family homes. So that's kind of my comment. I'd like to hear a response or thoughts on the matter.
I'm sorry, did you say you're 324 Campbell?
My property, I think, is getting
He's a
rezoned.
he's a single-family home that should have been
R6.
R4, actually.
Or, yeah,
R4, but was institutional by mistake.
Oh, right, yeah.
So
Right.
your house is the one immediately adjacent to the Grimes Center?
that's correct.
And does it have the 30-foot front yard setback?
I'm not sure if it does or not. I haven't had a survey on my property.
It sits much closer, though, than,
It-
I mean,
Well, I wouldn't say much, but a little bit closer, maybe 5 or 10 feet closer than the house next to me. That said, that's another good question. Will the changing in zoning affect, I guess, any of the, my current land rights? Or would it be grandfathered in and therefore not have an effect?
Well, wouldn't it affect the existing improvements, but it may affect your ability to make further improvements, especially where something is non-conforming. I'm not sure what your other setbacks are. I do know that when we took a look at the site, I personally went to the site, and I noticed that your home sits forward of the other homes, and the 10 feet sounds about right, and that would explain the difference between the R6 and the R4. So looking back historically, the property had been R6. Then the township created institutional zoning in the mid-70s and made this Grimes Center institutional, but your lot was never intended to be rezoned. And I'll bet your certificate of occupancy, if we go back and look, shows the original residential designation to the property. So maybe it's something that we should just look at for your property, but I'm guessing it was developed as part of the R6 because it's in line with the rest of the R6, and we would have just continued that zoning boundary from the backyards of the properties on Winton straight up. And it sits so much forward to the street than the rest of the homes. So I feel like the R6 might be a pretty good designation for your property.
I understand. So based on your response, my understanding is that my property would be grandfathered in, is that correct?
The existing improvements, correct.
And then if the church went and sold the property that's currently zoned institutional after the rezoning to R4 or R6, that would affect what the builder could do, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
So it would be my preference to see single homes in that area opposed to twins, which is why I would prefer to have an R4 designation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any commissioners have any other questions? With that, I think we would close the record for tonight, and this matter will be placed on the agenda next week, December 8th,
First reading.
for our first reading. And the meeting, I believe, is 7:30 that evening?
It is.
7:30.
And
Okay.
the ordinance that we would consider at that would be corrected in the two manners that was just discussed. 22020650 would be INS to ROS,
Correct.
and the Grimes Center would be R6 for our consideration.
Correct.
Okay.
But Lori, as this reads, then Campbell, 324 Campbell would go INS to R4. That's how this reads here, am I correct? An exhibit says the ordinance, the Grimes Center institutional district to R4 low to medium density residential district, 324 Campbell to R4.
But my recommendation
Is to
would
be
to
R6.
revert
So that
it
would
to its
encompass
original-
his as well. Oh, sorry.
But my recommendation would be to the R6,
Right.
just to revert it to its original zoning classification.
Right, okay, so that would change.
Okay. And then we close the record for tonight. Thank you.
Okay. I guess we can start the regular work session. Chief?
Thank you, Commissioner. Crime stat report for the month of November.
I don't have.
I've been reporting on the burglaries and thefts from vehicles. Since they were out of whack, there were so many earlier. For the month of November, there was one burglary, residential burglary, and there was one theft from vehicle. Officers wrote 483 traffic